All right, good afternoon. This time I truly apologize for being late. I had a couple of late breaking notes come in. As you saw this morning, the Secretary General spoke at the Security Council's open meeting on pandemics and the challenges of sustaining peace. The Secretary General noted that the COVID-19 pandemic threatens not only hard-won developments and peace-building gains, but also risks making conflicts worse or fomenting new ones. He stressed that the challenges of this pandemic underscore, like never before, the imperative of coherent, multidimensional, and cross-pillar responses, along with the integrated logic of the Sustainable Development Goals. The Secretary General pointed to what he called the three key dangers. First, the pandemic can undermine faith in governments and public institutions. Secondly, they can destabilize global economic order. And lastly, he said pandemics could weaken the social fabric by, for example, narrowing the civic space and closing avenues for democratic processes. But the Secretary General said, in spite of challenges, the pandemic also creates opportunities for peace, pointing to the positive responses to the appeal for a global ceasefire earlier this year. The world, he said, is looking to all leaders, including the Security Council, to address this epic crisis in ways that make concrete, meaningful, and positive contributions to the lives of people. And you will have seen that yesterday we issued a statement on Bolivia in which the Secretary General said he is following with concern the recent developments in Bolivia. He called on the organizers of protests there to ensure the safe passage of ambulances, oxygens, medicine, and to allow for the delivery of goods and services essential to the people. The Secretary General also welcomed the readiness of the executive, the Plurinational Legislative Assembly, and the Supreme Electoral Tribunal, as well as its political parties, and social organizations to enter into dialogue in order to resolve the political, social, economic, and health challenges facing Bolivia. Furthermore, he urged continued restraint to avoid escalation and called upon all social political leaders to contribute to the preservation of peace. Turning to Lebanon, we, along with our partners, continue to conduct needs assessments and deliver emergency assistance to people most in need following last week's blast in Beirut. The World Food Programme's Executive Director, David Beasley, announced today that the organization is bringing 17,500 metric tons of wheat flour and a 3-month supply of wheat into Lebanon to help replenish the country's food reserve. That is part of a rapid logistics operation that will also involve setting up warehouses and mobile grain storage unit. WFP has also prepared 150,000 food parcels for distribution to families affected by the economic crisis and COVID-19 lockdown measures. In addition, the World Food Programme will scale up its cash assistance program in Lebanon tenfold to reach up to 1 million people, including residents directly impacted by the blast. The UN Refugee Agency, for its part, has distributed hot meals to 30,000 people, along with food kits for 700. Non-food items and hygiene kits were also provided. And the UN Population Fund's partners have distributed dignity kits to an estimated 200,000 adolescent girls and women. 40 frontline social workers have also been trained to provide psychosocial support to women affected by the Beirut blast. UNICEF, for its part, is also supporting 720 children and adults with psychosocial support through face-to-face sessions, phone calls, and door-to-door visits with the families. Staying on issues relating to the same country, we mentioned yesterday the briefings to the Security Council by Jan Kubish, the Special Coordinator for Lebanon, and Jean-Pierre Lacroix, the Undersecretary General for Peace Operations. The Council's discussions in a closed sessions included updates on the developments in the UNIFIL area of operations and on the mission's mandate renewal. In his letter on July 29th, the Secretary General recommended the extension of the mandate of UNIFIL for a further 12 months until August 31st of next year. In his latest report to the Security Council, the Secretary General underscored the importance of UNIFIL's work as it continues to maintain peace and provide stability at a difficult time for the country. Noting the resignation of Prime Minister Diab and his cabinet, Mr. Kubish, for his part, emphasized the importance of avoiding a prolonged period of governmental vacuum. He urged the rapid formation of a new government that meets the aspirations of the Lebanese people and enjoys their support, a government that can address the urgent and many challenges facing the country and break with the corrupt practices of the past. Yesterday and today, Mr. Kubish continued his contacts with political and diplomatic representatives in Lebanon, as well as different parts of the UN family. He also had a meeting with the visiting Minister of Foreign Affairs of Germany, Heiko Maas, who was in Beirut. And I want to give you a bit of a recap of where we stand on the safer oil tanker that is anchored, as you know, off the coast of Yemen, which we've been talking about quite a bit in the last few weeks. As you'll recall, on July 14th, we submitted an official request to Ansar Allah authorities for a UN-led assessment and initial repair mission to the tanker. This request was based on communications that the authorities sent us on July 5th, confirming they would accept an assessment and repair mission. The Ansar Allah authorities have recently come back to us with a range of technical follow-up questions, which we have answered. We appreciate, of course, the need to clarify and for all of us to be on the same page. And we also understand the importance of making sure this work meets the highest possible technical standards, and the experts we have on standby are extremely well qualified to undertake this work. We hope that the authorities will authorize the mission right away, especially given the vivid illustrations we have seen from Beirut and Mauritius to the risk and what it could cost if we keep waiting. That risk cannot be overstated. We're happy to provide and have been providing any technical information required, and we want to keep working with everyone to get this done as quickly as possible. Turning to South Sudan, I have an update to share with you. Our peacekeeping colleagues tell us that following the violence in Tonj over the weekend, which saw 70 people being killed, a patrol from the mission arrived there yesterday evening. The clashes between members of South Sudan and South Sudan People's Defense Forces and armed civilians. The patrol includes both military and civilian peacekeepers. They are engaging with local authorities and community leaders to prevent further violence and help with reconciliation efforts. The human rights team is also on the ground to carry out an investigation. The UN patrol will also visit Romich, a village in Tonj East that was directly impacted by the violence, to assess security situation there. And also in South Sudan, the humanitarian coordinator at interim, Dr. Olusegun Olu, called unacceptable an unprovoked attack on an NGO convoy in Nye County in central Equatorial State. He urged the authorities to take an immediate action, stressing that protecting humanitarian personnel in the country is a duty for all. The NGO, whose convoy was attacked earlier this week, is a partner of the United Nations. Its convoy was carrying patients at the time of the ambush, and while it was on its way to a refugee settlement to provide health, nutrition, and hygiene services. And in Mauritius, the resident coordinator there, Christine Umutoni, informs us that an interagency UN team, including experts on oil spills, legal support and coordination, arrived yesterday to support the government-led response to the oil spill that's impacting Mauritius, and they are also engaging local communities and the private sector. The International Maritime Organization, the UN Migration Agency, UN Environment Program, our colleagues at OCHA, and the UN Office of Drugs and Crime organized the deployment, with the World Food Program providing flight arrangements. The UN team is also continuing its support to the Ministries of Environment and Health with daily assessment of the crisis. The UN Development Program is providing technical advice, and the World Health Organization supporting messaging for impacted communities. And today we turn to another region of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the eastern province of Ituri. Since the beginning of the year, hundreds of people have died, including 20 killed in armed attacks in the past few days alone. More than 660,000 people have fled violence and are now displaced in the province. Others have sought refuge in neighboring countries. In a statement, the humanitarian coordinator for the DRC, David McLaughlin-Carr, condemned the violence and expressed his concerns about the humanitarian situation. He also reiterated the importance of preserving the civilian and humanitarian characters of the sites housing displaced people. He called on the Congolese authorities to do their utmost to support the protection of civilians and address the root causes of instability in the province. And today, in case you did not know, is International Youth Day. And the theme of this year is Youth Engagement for Global Action. In a message, the Secretary General said the theme spotlights the ways in which voices and activism of young people are making a difference in moving our world closer to the values and vision of the UN Charter. The Secretary General notes that the lives and aspirations of young people continue to be upended by the COVID-19 pandemic, but this generation is also resilient, resourceful, and engaged. For the Secretary General, realizing the promises of this generation means investing far more in young people's inclusion, participation, organization, and initiative. He calls on leaders and adults everywhere to do everything possible to enable the world's youth to enjoy lives of safety, dignity, opportunity, and contribute to the fullest of their great potential. On a related note, today the Secretary General had the first meeting of his new Youth Advisory Group on Climate Change with 7 young climate activists. Deputy Secretary General Mina Mohammed was also there, as well as the Youth Envoy and the Secretary General's Assistant Secretary General for Climate Action. The Secretary General also noted he was inspired by young people everywhere who are demonstrating what leadership looks like by bringing positive solutions and holding leaders to account. He added that while we're off track in relation to the 1.5-degree goal of the Paris Agreement, we are still in the race. And we're still in the race in large part due to the efforts of youth everywhere. The Secretary General heard perspectives on boosting climate action from members of the group and ideas on implementing his 6 climate positive actions to recover better. He offered the support of the UN to help them in their duties and bring other young people into their work. And staying with the young ones, a new report released today by the International Labour Organization shows that since the outset of the pandemic, more than 70% of our youth who study and combine study work have been adversely impacted by the closing of schools, university, and training centers. According to the report, 65% of young people reported having learned less since the beginning of the pandemic. Despite their efforts to continue studying and training, half of them believed their studies would be delayed. 9% thought they might fail. The situation has never been worse for youth living in lower income counties who have access to the internet, the lack of equipment, and sometimes the lack of space at home. And in answer to a couple of questions I was asked yesterday about the Secretary General's phone call with the Italian Foreign Minister, Luigi Di Maio, which took place on Monday, I can tell you that the call for the Secretary General to extend his condolences to the death of our colleague, Mario Pacciola. He assured the Foreign Minister that the UN is providing the utmost on the ongoing Colombian investigation into Mario's death and stressed that such cooperation would equally be extended to the Italian investigation. And in response to a question I got from Pam about the air conditioning system at UN headquarters, I have an answer, and it's probably more than you ever wanted to know about HVAC systems. But I can tell you that the headquarters HVAC system and the systems in the leased annex buildings are being fully maintained. We have increased the rating of the filters in the HQ campus system. All HQ campus systems are now installed with MERV 10 pre-filter and MERV 14 main filters. The filters of the HVAC system of the leased annex buildings have also been upgraded to the maximum MERV ratings that each system is capable of handling. We have taken the approach of flushing 100% of outside air to occupied space for 30-minute periods multiple times a day. The runtime for each unit are staggered so as not to cause spikes in overall energy demand. This is working well, and we've had no issue in maintaining comfortable conditions. And last, but definitely not least, we are happy to have a full payment today from North Macedonia. Our thanks and welcome to the ranks. We now have 109 fully paid up regular member states in full. All right, let me go to our chat and see if we have any question. Nabil, yes, please, go ahead.
Thanks, Stéphane, for reminding us of the recommendations. I also just want to put it on record that the Easy TV system was updated during the pandemic, and it's not functioning well in my office and maybe other offices. So please take note of that.
Okay, we'll do.
My question is about UNIFIL. How important for UNIFIL is to deploy drones, especially in the blue line area? Because this is part of the recommendations that Mr. Lacroix raised in the closed meeting with the member states. So I want to know from you, how important is this, and what was the reaction from Lebanon and Israel on this point?
The discussions are ongoing. If we recommend something, we believe that it's important. I'm not going to start to kind of rank which of the recommendations are more important than others. I think there are, as you know better than I, discussions going on with member states on the formulation of the required resolution, and we need to let that process play through. Obviously, we have made clear through the Secretary General's reports, through letters, through briefings from Mr. Lacroix about what we feel we need. It's now up to the member states to take action. And I think, Nabil, you had asked me about an update on the peacekeepers, the UNIFIL peacekeepers, and I can tell you that of the 23 UN naval peacekeepers from Bangladesh who were injured in the blast, 4 remain in hospital, but their condition is currently stable. Okay, Pam.
Thank you for the answer on the ventilation system. I'll have to consult an expert also. I'm not an expert on filtration, but there was a point last winter when at least the technical people who had come around to different booths at the UN said that for ecological reasons, the air filtration system had been put on low ventilation. So the level of air pumping was lower. Can you check on that piece of it? It may be what Nabil was talking about, because it's definitely the case in several offices that both don't get levels of air conditioning and levels of heating that had previously been in offices. And it may relate to COVID. Thank you.
All right, Pam, let's, before I dive even deeper into the unknowns of HVAC. I think if there are, and this goes also for you, Nabil, if there are specific issues having to do with media offices, I would ask you to get in touch with Tal. I'm happy to answer general questions about what we're doing for the building of the briefing, but if there's specific questions about your offices, which that's what it sounds like, I would ask you to bring it up with Tal.
But just so you know, and see if you can get another answer, Tal did have people come to the offices. That's where I got this information. Well, it's really about the spread of any kind of virus.
I can tell you from what I've said that we are doing the maximum to keep the building safe, and that includes upgrading the ventilation system. Our colleagues on the plants who deal with the physical plant are working hand in hand with the medical service. I think we want everyone, absolutely everyone, to be safe, whether it's staff, diplomats, and obviously you from the media. Your offices are a little specific because they're closed in. So again, in terms of the offices, I would encourage you to continue your conversations with our Malu colleagues. Majid.
Thank you, Stéphane. I have 2 questions, one Iraq and the second Lebanon. The first one about Iraq, there has been a major escalation between Turkey and Iraq. Yesterday, 2 high-level Iraqi commanders got killed by a Turkish airstrike. Today, the Ministry of Iraq's Foreign Ministry issued a statement condemning. Iraq has canceled several diplomatic events and visited with Turkey. What is the Secretary General's position about this? Has he been in touch with any of the parties, and why the head of UNAMI still hasn't said a word about this major escalation on the Iraqi and Turkish border? That's my first question. If you want to
off the top of my head, I don't know if she has or has not said anything. What I can tell you is that the Secretary General is obviously aware of the military operations in northern Iraq. I think he's very concerned about the reports of the loss of life that we saw in Erbil Governorate. He calls for maximum restraint and urges Turkey and Iraq to resolve the situation peacefully through bilateral dialogue and negotiation, and of course, based on international law.
My second question is on Lebanon. I'm not sure if my colleagues asked about this, about the investigation. There are calls for international investigation from within Lebanon into the explosion. Has any of the authorities so far been in touch or had discussion with the United Nations about possibility of any international-led, UN-led investigation into the explosion? And is UN ready and willing to do such investigation in a timely manner?
We are obviously ready to urgently provide any such assistance to any sort of inquiry investigation if requested to by the Lebanese government. As the Secretary General said in his remarks, there is very much a need for transparent and credible and independent investigation into what led to this horrendous disaster and huge loss of life, not to mention the impact on Lebanon as a whole.
Thank you, Stéphane.
Okay, Edie.
Thank you very much, Steph. A couple of follow-up questions. On the SAFER, are the UN experts ready to go in immediately after given a green light from the Houthis? And secondly, on South Sudan, what did the UN patrol actually find when it got to the area? There have been reports that the casualty toll is much higher than you reported yesterday.
They got there last night. The information of what they found hasn't percolated back up to us as of yet. I will try to get something for the afternoon and update you in writing, because I think it's very important for us to be able to report back what we've seen and what we're actually seeing on the ground. The team is ready to go as quickly as possible. The critical bit here are for us to get the permissions from the local authorities. But you can imagine these are highly specialized technicians. We have identified people; they're on standby and ready to go. And you know, I think you know, we've talked about the risk of what would happen with this tanker, the ecological risk, the human risk, and now I think just what we saw in Beirut just last week is a clear example of what happens when you leave things for too late, right? When you don't take action. We're seeing the ecological damage that's being caused in Mauritius by the tanker. You know, we keep warning, but these things are real. And we want to get to the tanker as quickly as possible with all the right permissions. Abdelhamid.
Thank you, Stéphane. I have a question and a few follow-ups. My question, today, the regional office of UNFPA in Cairo issued a flash appeal for funds for Lebanon. And I expected you to talk about that in the briefing. Can you give us more details about that?
What's your other question?
The other question is a follow-up about my question on Libya and about the young Palestinian who was killed last Friday, and Lebanon did not say anything, and why he's keeping silent about that. And I sent you some information about Libya yesterday. And the follow-up is, are they authorized to pinpoint those companies who are in violation of the arms embargo while skipping others. For example, they didn't mention Russia or the Arab Emirates, which they came both in the expertise report. But these three countries only spoke about three companies, one in Jordan, one in Kazakhstan, and one in Turkey, and they did not talk about other violations.
I think those are those are really questions for member states. What is important for us is that the embargo be respected, and it's the responsibility of all member states to ensure that the embargo is respected. And on UNFPA, yes, they've launched a flash appeal. We did mention what UNFPA is doing on the ground, and also they're launching a flash appeal, urgently appealing for $19.6 million to meet the life-saving needs of women and girls impacted by the explosion. On the other issues I mentioned to you yesterday, our understanding is our colleagues at the Office for the Human Rights based in Jerusalem are looking into the facts surrounding this, the facts of what happened. Okay, Kristen, Salome.
Hi there, Stéphane. Just following up on Lebanon, can you explain for us why the Secretary General thinks drones would be helpful in this case, and what steps he thinks could be taken to strengthen the mandate? It would be helpful to hear that from
you. As I mentioned, the situation along the blue line, keeping the calm along the blue line is critical to regional peace and security. We want to have a strong and clear mandate from the Security Council for UNIFIL to do its work. Obviously, that would include all the tools that we feel are needed to do that mandate. We've deployed drones in other parts. I think we have made it clear to the Security Council what we need, and it is now up to them to act.
But just to clarify, you don't think the mandate needs to change in order to?
I think our recommendations have been made very clear to the Security Council. Okay. Stefano, please.
Thank you, Stéphane. Yeah, you know already what it is about. It's for Mario Pacciola and the situation in Colombia. I just want to read you very briefly the statement that the Italian foreign minister released to the press in English. And there was this, about the conversation of the Minister Di Maio had with the Secretary General. In a passage, they say, the minister expressed the strong Italian expectation that the competent Colombian authorities can continue to count on the full cooperation of the United Nations to reach a rapid solution of the case. My question is, it looks from what I'm reading, it looks like that the minister had a conversation with the Secretary General Guterres to make sure that the UN was helping the Colombian authority and not the way around, and not the other way around. So if it's just my impression, and this is my question, and then if you can help me again, any new information that you have, if you can help.
Stefano, you're asking me to interpret the motives of the Italian foreign minister, what he wanted to achieve with that call. That's not my job. I'm not. There are other spokespeople in Rome who are paid to do that. That's not what I'm here to do. What I can tell you is that the Secretary General assured the foreign minister that we are providing our utmost support to the ongoing Colombian investigation into Mario's death, and we would do the same with the Italian investigation. Okay, Lenka, please.
Thank you. Please, I got a question. In today's debate on pandemics, one of the council members proposed that the UN Secretariat should prepare some kind of policy brief on the impact of sanctions on the struggle against COVID. What does the Secretary General think about this request, and is he going to follow up on this? Thank you.
Yes, I mean we always act and follow the requests of the Security Council. So we will wait to get formal notification, but we will, if anything formally comes to the Security Council, we will act upon it. Iftikhar.
Thanks, Steph. I may have missed it, but did you see any reaction from WHO about the Russian claim that they have discovered a vaccine to fight the coronavirus?
I think WHO, I think, has commented on it. I would ask you to check with them or check their website.
I see.
Pamela, you had a follow-up.
Yes, thanks, Steph. If I understand you correctly from what you answered on Edie's question, the request you made for Yemen for assessment and repair of the safer tanker off Yemen was for assessment repair mission. They responded with questions, and that's what is the next step before anything happens.
Exactly. We need their permission to go.
Right, of course.
And they've asked us questions, which are legitimate questions, and then we are doing and we're answering those questions and bring whatever clarification we need. But we do feel that the clock is ticking.
So I'm sorry. My actual question is, can you clarify a little bit about what those questions were, or what they're concerned about?
No, I don't want to get into the details of the discussions we're having. They needed some clarity about the experts, and obviously, we would only get the top flight experts to deal with this, and they had other questions. Whatever questions they have, we are answering, and we're answering as quickly as possible, and we're waiting the final answer from them.
Thank you.
Okay. Martin Wong, please. Martin? Okay, I don't hear you. Evelyn, sorry, I missed you. Sorry, Evelyn, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. I realize that in Lebanon, the emergency situation takes priority, but is anyone working on long-term reconstruction at the UN or elsewhere?
Well, I mean, yes, it's already being thought about. There's an urgent humanitarian need, which we're dealing with, and obviously working with the Lebanese authorities. There's already thinking going on about reconstruction.
Who's doing that thinking?
Well, the UN, and obviously in partnership with the Lebanese authorities.
Who in the UN? Anyone in particular, or everybody?
Well, it's the UN team on the ground. We have, as part of their team, there are people that deal with longer term issues. They're doing that. Martin Wang. Martin had a question, which he's texting to me. Secretary General expresses concern about the rising tensions between China and the United States lately. Yes, I think it is not new that the Secretary General has been concerned and worried about the growing tensions between the United States and China, two permanent members of the Security Council, and the impact that has had and that could have on the work of the United Nations, on the work of the Security Council. It is very important that these two important countries, the two largest economies in the world, work in a spirit of cooperation and coordination, especially when it comes to the work of the United Nations. Okay, I think I've answered all of your questions for today, at least. We shall see you tomorrow.
I have a question. I wrote my name.
Oh, yes, sorry, Abdelhamid. Yes, sorry.
Sorry. It's a follow-up. I asked this question to Mr. Farhan Haq last week. There are many UN staff, retired staff and current staff in Lebanon. Because of the financial crisis prior to the explosion, their funds had been frozen. They could not have access to their funds. And they wrote a letter to the Secretary General. The Secretary General referred the letter to Jan Kubic to solve the problem. I want to, if you have any update on the issue, or I know it's not the time, but it's an ongoing problem. Some of these staff, they have obligations to pay, like mortgages and other things. And they've been knocking on the door of the UN for several months now, and the issue has not been solved. Can you update us on that or give us some answers, please?
And listen, we're working, and we were working prior to the explosion. We'll continue to do so with the relevant authorities in Lebanon to make sure that all current and former staff get access to their own funds, to the funds that they have a right to have access to. Okay, just to let you know, we are working to have David Beasley on. If all goes well, we may have him on Friday, and we hope to have Filippo Grandi on the following week. Okay. At this time, I actually bid you adieu, and we'll talk later. Bye.